Hello, sense of things. It's Jeff and Ron here once again for another week of what's going on in the world, what's going on in the markets, and we're running up on Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever holidays, Festivus, all that. This week, we're going to cover a little bit about some weird Christmas facts. We've got some things coming up in the market this week. Probably the biggest one and most consequential is the Fed's rate decision. That's been affecting the markets for the last couple of weeks. And then Ron's got some really good stuff talking about some Google searches, top Google searches, and a few other subjects like that. So stay tuned. We'll be right back on in a second. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Ron, how you doing, my friend?
Good morning. Should we start reciting elf lines or no?
Yeah, I think so. Now, I was never a big watcher of the show, so I'm not going to be helpful to you there.
It was one of my son's favorites. I loved it. And I
Yeah,
tell you, I watched it again over Thanksgiving weekend from end to end, and it's still a
still
classic.
funny. Yeah. My favorite of all time, probably the show that most people don't know is Dinosaurs.
Mm,
Probably one of the funniest shows I've ever laughed. It just makes me laugh watching it today. So it
okay,
reminded me of the old Sid and Marty Krofft stuff when we were growing up. So
gotcha. Okay,
cool. So why don't I kick it off today
please.
and talk about Christmas facts so that people have some useless information to take with them when
Of
they're
course.
visiting a family
Who doesn't
here.
want useless information?
I know everybody needs a little useless information here and there. All right, let's get this puppy up here. Okay. So, top 5 weird Christmas facts. Did you know
Ooh,
Christmas wasn't always on December 25th?
did not know that.
Although Christmas celebrates the birth of Christ, it doesn't actually mention December 25th anywhere in the Bible.
So wait,
In
he wasn't born on that date?
Nope. In fact, some historians think Jesus was born in the spring and not winter at all. Christmas on
Ah,
December
I've been lied to
25th.
my whole life.
I know. Christmas not until the 300s,
It's a
300 AD.
multi-billion-dollar industry. They're not changing it now.
Nope, not going to change. I think the biggest thing, from my understanding, is when around the Council of Nicaea, they decided on using December 25th because it was a big pagan holiday, and so it was easier to sell it for replacing a big
I
pagan
think I did hear
holiday.
that.
Yep. So you
Oh
won't hear
boy.
Council of Nicaea
You should
mentioned
have
too
let you should have left this fact for last.
much. All right. Evergreens are an ancient tradition, not just a Christmas thing. So, iconic Christmas tree has a lot of roots, forgive the pun. Ancient Egyptians used to mark winter solstice by decorating their homes with green palms, while the Romans celebrated Saturnalia with evergreen boughs. These green plants signified the blah, blah would return to new life. The first Christmas trees we know them today started in Germany in the 16th century.
Hmm. Okay.
Now, on that same subject, you can thank Prince Albert in the can, Christmas tree, because he was from Germany. He had German roots. And in 1848, he decided to put a Christmas tree. They started making it fashionable by putting it in Buckingham Palace. We didn't have them for very long. All right. And I just actually saw this on the Discovery Channel recently. So this is actually pretty interesting. St. Nick was more generous than jolly. The original Santa Claus was actually St. Nicholas, a Christian bishop in the 4th century in Turkey. He didn't wear red, and he didn't give but he did give all of his inheritance to the poor and needy. And in Dutch, his name is Sinterklaas, which later morphed into Santa Claus.
And I also heard an interesting, not nostalgia, bit of
Yeah.
nostalgia, that Coca-Cola
Mm-hmm.
is actually more influential and responsible for what we know of Santa Claus looking today, based on a lot of their advertising, because they advertised so much in the 20s and 30s and 40s that a lot of people grasped onto how they imagine Santa Claus to look.
Funny you should say that. He
Uh-oh.
wasn't always jolly, the jolly man in red. I'm
Oh, you
impressed.
didn't tee me up for that one.
Older depictions of Santa from the early depicted him more sternly. He wasn't standardized as a look, and it wasn't until Haddon Sunbloom created the Coca-Cola ads. That's our now version of what we think of as Santa Claus. It
Yes,
wasn't until
yes.
1931.
Yep.
It's interesting. My wife and I used to have, and I think we finally ended up giving them away, but there was a whole series of Christmas ornaments that we collected over a period of 10 years when we were first married, and they were all based on Haddon Sunbloom's illustrations of Coca-Cola, the Coca-Cola Santa.
Did you get Hess trucks when you were a kid?
I never got Hess truck. I didn't even know what a Hess truck was
Really?
until my grand or my mother-in-law. She always had one, and I was like, "What? Where did you get that
They're
from?" And she's like,
collectibles.
"Oh, they're
Maybe they
hugely
weren't real
collectible."
big in the Midwest or the West, but
Yeah,
they
I
were
think
huge in the Northeast because Hess's headquarters was in North Jersey.
sure. Yeah, I'd never even heard of Hess before my mother-in-law, and she had just one of these that she always had like up on her shelf or something like that. But yeah, I'd never even heard of it before then. Now I even see commercials for them. It seems like they have a commercial every year for the Hess truck.
Oh yeah. Now they're
I think
cool.
they
Many of
sell
them are
more.
collectibles.
Yeah, they sell more collectible trucks than they sell actual gas, I think.
They actually just sold the company, I think, last year.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it was the exit strategy for the family, I think.
Yep. Yep. And then somebody will just buy up the Hess trucks and sell those every year for Christmas. So
Why not?
yep. This week, probably the most consequential thing that we've got going on this week is the last real economic news for the year, which is going to be what the Fed does with interest rates. The market is guesstimating. Now, it was funny last week when we didn't do a show last week, markets were going all over crazy because oh my God, we're getting interest rate, or we're getting CPI and PPI, and it's higher than normal. So maybe the Fed's not going to do this. I don't think there's a chance on the planet that the Fed's not going to do this because they're going to look really bad and really like they're trying to sway the election by doing all the cuts and not doing one here. My estimate is they're going to cut by a quarter point at this point. What's your thoughts?
Look, I'm going to go back to what I said a year ago. I figured there'd be at least 1 to 2, no more
Yeah.
than 3 this year. Despite the fact that in November, December last year, they were looking at up to 6 or 7 this year, which if that was the case, we would have been in a recession if we
Oh,
would have
yeah.
had that many. The answer is, I think based on the last CPI and CPE print, I think the futures on the Fed rate going down a quarter of a point was above 80%. So the answer is, I think that if they don't cut a quarter of a percent, I think that would be the surprise, not the cut itself.
Yeah. Yeah. I see them doing it at this point. It sounds like going to live through the transition of presidency at this point. And I don't know. I just think they say they're data dependent. The data is not really going up much and it's not really going down much. I just estimate that they'll do that. I don't know what they're going to do next year. I, they haven't
They
really.
might be on pause for a few months to see how things shake out with the new administration.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's the
Unless
biggest
data,
word.
unless data is just tipping them one way or the other.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's probably going to be into the spring, summer, late spring, summer before they get back to doing anything. I just don't really imagine them doing any up at this point, but it's just when are they going to do the rest of the downs at this point? And is
But it's interesting you say that, and we could move on. You saying when are they going to do the rest of the down rates?
yeah,
In order for that to happen, that means you have to have a terminal bottom.
sure.
What is that? Three, two and
Yeah.
three quarter, 3.5%? We're what at 4.5 now.
Mm-hmm.
So what is a terminal rate? I always hate when people say, "Oh no, it'll be 3.5." You don't know. To the
Yeah.
upside, they thought it wouldn't be more than 4.75 or 5, and we
Yeah.
went up as high as 5 or whatever
Yep.
the hell it was. So
Yep.
I think the terminal rate is probably somewhere between 3.5, which is one and
Yep.
a half, 1 to 1.5 from here. Who
Yeah.
knows? But that sounds about right.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's within range of their 2% where they want the inflation to be at and everything else. And it's working its way back there, but it's been really persistent in this like 2.7 range. And
Yeah.
I don't really see it going down anytime soon. It's like losing that last 10 or 15 pounds of fat on you. You just can't get it off, and it's very difficult to do that. So
I hear you. I hear you. So I have some fun stuff.
okay.
I saw this. It was pretty interesting just because it is useless information, but it's fun information. The top Google searches in 2024. It's interesting on the left, just as far as general searches,
Mm-hmm.
4 out of the 5 is soccer related. so,
Yeah.
so I don't know how much of that was actually done in the US, but internationally, it was obviously pretty
Internationally, I
big.
would assume. Yeah.
And then on the far right side, I would the US election #1, which that's a given. Did you do a lot of the searches for #5? Because for me, that was a big story in the world, and I just had a tough time following it. I don't know about you.
All I know is it was 10. Whatever it was 10.
I don't know, but I thought #2 was interesting. Excessive heat.
Yeah.
I,
You guys were hotter than blazes this summer.
It wasn't actually too, I think the temperature was okay. The humidity ticked up a little bit, but
Yeah.
not too bad. But I know in parts
Didn't
of
you
the
guys
US it
go
was
like
bad.
100 days or something of 100+ degrees?
That's normal. Yeah, but
Oh,
Jeff, that's normal. But when you're in high single and low double digit humidity,
sure.
I'd much rather be in 110 here in the afternoon with low humidity than by you in 85, 90 degrees with 100% humidity. You could keep that.
Try 100 degrees with 100% humidity on
The
top of
answer is no.
it.
Yeah, but you can't even go outside. You could
Yeah.
at least go outside here at 105, 110. You may
Yeah.
not stand outside and worship the sun, but you could at least function.
Sure. And I think it was up on the East Coast too. It was a little bit of a warmer summer
And
for
they
the
get the
East.
humidity there too. I
Yeah,
spent enough
well,
of
I
that.
get a lot of humidity, and when they're bitching about 85 and 100% humidity, I'm like, dude, that's January here. So, I mean, I think today we're hitting like 79 or so here in
So
the middle
what?
of almost Christmas.
So one of the top searches on the prior page was Liam Payne.
Yeah.
So of the top searches of people who passed, Liam Payne was #1. I don't know
Who
much
is that?
about
I don't even
him.
know who that is.
Yeah, Shannon Doherty. I know she had cancer quite a bit. We
Yep.
all know who OJ was.
Yep.
Toby Keith was surprising, but I don't think he was in
Yeah.
good health for a while.
No,
Uh,
he'd had cancer for 18 months to 2 years.
mm. And now you
Really
heard
quick.
Randy Moss has cancer. Didn't say the extent of that, but he had to take a leave of absence from the NFL show.
Hmm.
Then of the athletes, I'm not sure who I think I've heard the name. Is it Caliph or I'm not sure. But that Mike
Yeah.
Tyson Jake Paul fight, those guys are getting sued now, and I don't blame them because people actually put money down on that,
Yeah,
and
it
that
was
that was that
terrible.
was a fixed fight as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it was awful.
You
It
know
was,
what? Even though I already had Netflix subscription, I still wanted my money back for spending time watching that crap.
yes. Yeah. I just want the hour back that I spent.
And it was a huge promotion for Netflix. Believe me, they did well on it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Simone
I thought
Biles,
this
who
was
cares?
I thought this was a fun one because somebody told me that you could do this in Google a while ago and you forget it. Like you hear a song in your head, you don't know the name of it. You could
Okay.
actually go to Google search, hit the microphone, and hum the song, and it
Okay.
may actually find it for you. So I don't know about you, but I have no clue what the hell Bling Bang Bang Born is by Creepy Nuts. I'm afraid to even look up and hear whatever
I don't
song.
want to. I really seriously do not want to Google creepy nuts. Period.
Could
I
that be the theme song when you watch Florida Man videos? I don't
think
know.
so. Yep, that is absolutely the Florida Man song, and I'm guessing creepy nuts is probably from Florida. I'm just saying.
Hey, it could be Creepy Austin Men too. Who the hell knows?
That's true. Remember, we blew past the Harry Man Festival in October.
It's all good. All right, just a couple more. Top searches for top parks. Central Park's a big one.
Okay.
No other major, like I figured maybe there'd be another
Yeah.
national park in US. No,
In
but
the
you
US,
had
yeah.
two in Japan.
Huh.
And then top museums. I've never been to any of these,
Oh, the
obviously.
British Museum. I swear to God, the British Museum pisses me off more than any other
Why is
museum.
that? You've
I've
obviously
tried
been
to
there.
go in there 3 times. First time, it took us forever on the subway to get around to get to it because it's in a weird, funky area via subway. This last time we went, we actually got out like a mile away and walked in. Second time we were there, they had some kind of like a water leak or something in there. Third time we went there, the damn thing, they had a strike of the people that work there, so the museum wasn't open. So I have given up on the British Museum. I will never go there again. So
You know what, Jeff? I think the feeling is mutual. They don't want you
I'm
back
sure
either.
they just don't want me there is the problem. So
I
science and
hear you. All
industry
right.
in
To get up
Chicago
to a
is
little,
awesome. Yep.
to get to some serious stuff, we've talked about this, and Visual Capitalist always does a good job.
Mm,
Who holds U.S. debt?
okay.
And we always talk about China and Japan owning the highest amount outside of the U.S. And I always think that this is interesting. But I will tell you just one thing that stood out here to me was, who the hell's still buying savings bonds?
Yeah, I know. But this last few years, they've been up quite a bit.
But back in the day when we were kids, and even really the
Yeah,
generation or two before us, people bought savings bonds for your nephew, niece,
sure.
whatever, a grandchild. And you said it was always like a 20-year because it would
Mhm.
mature when they went to college or out of college.
Sure.
I don't know of anybody that has purchased a savings bond in the last 25, 30
Apparently
years. Do you?
17% of the apparently
No, but
5.7
do you know of anybody that's bought a savings bond, or has anybody come to you saying, "Hey, Jeff, do you think I should buy a savings bond as a good investment for?"
I haven't had anybody do that, but I've had people come to me and I've got all these savings bonds, and I'm like, why do you have them? I think what's included in there though are the I bonds too, which people were buying a crap
Is
ton
that
of the
really
I
a savings
bonds.
bond?
Huh? Yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
considered a?
there's an I version of they
Yeah, no,
actually
I
mark.
know the I bond, but I didn't know that would. Savings bonds to me is the other one where you buy it for, it's $100 bond, you buy it
OID.
for
Yeah.
65 bucks,
Yep.
and when it matures, you get the
Yep.
100.
Yeah,
That's
so
not the
I mean
way I
that's
bond
one, but then
works.
there's an I version, there's a inflation oriented version of it. You're capped out. I think the max you can buy is either 2,000 or 5,000.
10
I
on
can't
an I
remember.
bond, it's 10,000.
Yeah. I think those are included in the savings bond world there too. Is
Well, we'll
there?
have to do some research for the next show
Yep.
on that. I'm
Yep.
interested because I didn't think that would be considered an I bond, because
Mhm.
actually somebody asked me about it. Other than a limitation of 10,000, first they
Mhm.
can't get it through us. They have to go
Yep.
directly to the website, and there is
Yep.
a minimum holding period of a year on that.
Yep.
Minimum. You can't get out of it under a year. And
Absolutely.
there's
Yeah.
so there's some other stipulations too.
And there really isn't a market for them per se. They basically sell them back to the government at that
Correct. At one
point.
time, you could have gotten one, I think, for 9% 2 years.
Yeah. So I think that's where a lot of that came from. I just, people with the OID versions of it, I just can't imagine. It's interesting because you always hear, oh, China is like the biggest holder of our debt. Really not.
They're the
Actually,
second
Japan
largest
is more.
international holder.
Yeah. But Japan is actually bigger than even they are. And which makes sense because we're so interlinked on our economies.
Yeah. And this is as of the end of 2023. And we
Okay.
all know that the debt is not 34.4, it's approaching or at 36. I haven't looked at the debt clock lately, but it's close to that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we talk about the LEI, the leading indicator, and
Yep.
I saw this on the Daily Shot, and I'm like, hey, you know what? Got to give them some credit for this, because with the conference board, if you go back over 65 years,
Mm-hmm.
never another time in history, they always had the LEI was a pretty good indicator of a pending recession. Here it is, 32 consecutive months of negative of showings of
Mm-hmm.
the leading indicator. We haven't been in a recession. It's the peak in 2021. And if you look at the bottom chart there, the highest was probably 76, 77 at 25 months. And
Mm-hmm.
we've already blown past that at,
We've blown past it, and it doesn't look like it's stopping anytime soon.
but we were talking about this in the pre-show. As
Yeah.
long as the unemployment rate is as low as it is, and people are still making the minimum payments on their credit card, the cracks can continue to
Yep.
show. We're not going to see any major shock in the economy until I think the unemployment significantly ticks up.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest part of this is it's befuddled me because I come from the leading indicators crowd. It's always been a really dang good indicator up till this last, what,
Cycle.
30 some odd months. This cycle is the weirdest time when it comes to leading indicators. And I think it's a combination of things. I think it is people working and still being able to finance their world through credit. And I think the other side is there was so much manipulation of the economy through what the administration was pumping into it,
Yep.
and the Fed playing their little games with everything, that it's decoupled from what reality typically is when it comes to this stuff. But that thing is like a screaming warning.
Here's the
warning.
crazy thing between the LEI, the SOM rule, all the other negative indicators that we've been going through in the last year that all said it's pending, it's flashing yellow, it's flashing light red.
Mm-hmm.
When it hits the fan, people are going to go, I told you. Wait a minute. You said, oh, look, we follow a lot of the same people. They said late 2023.
Yep.
Most like 80% chance
Gonna
or
have
whatever
to
by
happen.
mid 2024.
Yep. Still didn't happen.
Inverted yield curve. I told you.
Yeah, in there. Then it reverted back to it's normal. Still nothing's happened. Once again, it's just you just ride it as long as you can, and if it starts to show signs, that's where you shore up a little bit. But I just don't see it changing anytime soon. And I think with the new administration coming in, there's just a lot of pro-growth policies, and that may just keep people employed a little longer and stretch their credit cards a little bit longer at this point. At 28% interest. Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So we got at least one more before the end of the year. Now we're going to do our targets for next year, which will absolutely, we'll be blindfolded and be throwing darts again.
That's exactly. It reminds me of the days when I first got into this business in the mid 90s, when they had the joke of they had a monkey that would throw darts at a dartboard, and he was able to pick stocks better than the stock pickers. So
hold on, let's leave it on this one. There was a firm one time that used to put the Wall Street Journal at the bottom of a bird cage, and whatever stock the bird pooped on, that was the stock of the week. Don't laugh. Don't laugh. There's been crazier things that have been done on Wall Street.
But I think back then and in some aspects today, it's the same way, except you got the monkey's got to hit about 10 stocks that are driving everything, and that's it at this point. So
I know.
Yeah.
All
right, folks. Thank you for joining us once again. Our next show is going to be our annual show that we do, where we give our predictions and we eat our humble pie for what we expected from last year. I will tell you that Ron and I way underestimated what the market was going to do this year, and I just don't know for next year, but we'll see where we're at. So join us in there for the next show, and we will throw it out there again for you. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you give us that little upvote. Make sure you give us that comment so that we can keep up with you here. So thanks a lot, and we will see you guys back here the very next time.